everybody, and welcome back to the Safe and Sound Texas audio excursion. Today I want to share with you part one of my interview with Bernie Grundman. I met Bernie on a Thursday at noon at his facility. He was very open and engaging, and we had a really interesting discussion overall. Got a great look at the equipment in his studios, met Chris Bellman there. Bernie has a rich history of how he got into music at a very young age and his story to become one of the premier mastering engineers over time. I had a certain set of time frames that I wanted to hear about in Bernie's career because it seems like I've never really heard much of a story about it, and they are the times when he was at A&M Mastering, A&M Studios, A&M Records, working for Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss, who are in fact A&M, and some specific groups and focus areas that I wanted to learn about. Now, above and beyond that, we talked about some of his preeminent historical efforts on works such as Thriller, and in fact, his whole philosophy on mastering. And so I'll be covering part of this on this first part, a shorter segment on part two, to give you an idea of the man Bernie Grundman. So here it is, part one of my interview with Bernie Grundman. All right, well, I'm here today with Bernie Grundman at Bernie Grundman Mastering. Hi, Bernie.
Hello.
Thanks for having me today. I appreciate that very much. So, you know, Bernie's had a storied career. Here he's 84 and looking well, doing well. Good to see you in such magnanimous shape. We all hope we can do that. So one of the areas of your career that doesn't get talked about a lot is that I really have a huge interest in is your time at A&M.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I really, have a lot of interest in that because there are so many good pressings that came out then and great mastering. And so I just like to hear about your story of A&M and how you got started there. And, I'm a huge Carpenters fan. I even brought one of their records to ask you to sign because and we were even talking about Cheech and Chong earlier, and I go, yeah, they were at A&M. I don't know if Bernie mastered any, but he was at A&M at that time. So, take us on a trip down memory lane of A&M and Herb Alpert and Jerry Ross.
Well, yeah, I was fortunate to actually be like the start of A&M Records in a sense. When they bought that lot, they wanted to do a full-on recording, ability to do all the recordings, to do the mastering, and I had been doing their mastering at Contemporary Records, quite a bit of their mastering. And Herb would come over there. All these people was even doing a lot for Elektra, actually. And but then when they bought that lot and they started building the studios and stuff, they wanted to get into the mastering as well. And of course, they approached me and wanted me to actually moved to there instead of Contemporary, and of course that was a big opportunity for me because they actually were going to pay well, so that's always a good plus. But I also was very interested in A&M myself because they were interested in quality, and that's what I've always been gravitating to, is because I'm a real sound person. I'm really interested in how things sound and how real they sound and so forth. And so that was always a goal of mine. I wasn't just trying to do some famous artists. I wanted to really do justice to them and to what their recordings would be. So I was always focused on how to really present the person the best way, sound-wise and quality-wise. And that requires a certain kind of knowledge of even how to get that. And so it's a lot of trial and error stuff that goes on, but it was something that I was passionate about, and I really feel that people could get more out of a recording that's manipulated that way, so that you really were inside what was going on, and you were that sound stage you were part of as a listener. So and that's what I think Herb noticed too, and Burt Bacharach, all of the people that we had a lot of great artists, and a lot of them were good types of music too for good sound. So everything was designed for quality, and that was right down my alley of where I wanted to go. So I was and they wanted me to come over there and be their mastering engineer, and I was really gratified to do it.
Did so they had pretty much the whole process set. The recording studios obviously were there. The mastering was done there. So that made it kind of convenient, I would think, to...
Well, true. Yeah, no, people could come right over to mastering and make test discs or whatever. I mean, and odd things would happen. You know, I mean, you would do a test disc, and like Carole King's album was is an interesting example, because they wanted me to make just a test lacquer or a ref.
This tapestry we're talking about?
Yeah, tapestry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to do just a test cut of it, and I put it on, and right away I knew that it had some kind of magic in it. There was something about those performances in there, and Lou Adler,
the great Lou Adler,
was the producer,
yeah.
And he said, "Just make a test of what we have so far. I'm not sure what we're going to do. We were trying to decide on doing some overdubbing and some more production and stuff on it, so on all of this." And so I put the tape on, and I started listening to it, and I thought, oh, I mean, there was something special about it. I mean, it just hit me right away. I thought, there's not much going on here with a lot of instrumentation and other things, but it's great. I mean, it's like connecting with me emotionally nicely. So, I mean, I couldn't even think of anything I wanted to do. But he wanted to hear what was there, what they had come up with. And I just made him a disc of everything that was there. And everything I heard that came on that disc, because the same mixer was there, not with me, but had mixed it. And so I thought, well, gee, I think this is a terrific recording. I didn't tell him that. I sent it over to him, a ref of all of the tunes that were going to be on the album that were just the masters. I don't think I did. I don't really think I did. If I did any EQ, it was very minor, just to make things sound a little more consistent. But the next morning, Lou called me up and he says, "We're going to leave it just like it is." I thought, wow, they realized what they had too. And sure enough, it was a huge success.
Oh, bye.
I mean, it was.
It is.
And we could feel it right away. I mean, that's how well it was done. You know, it was so natural and so had the right feeling and so forth. It just attracted you.
Yeah, it's one of the most simplistic recordings in a way, but most open and immersive as well at the same time.
Yeah, community.
Yeah, really, it just has that. It's very dichotomy of that record is so strong. So I'm really glad you told that story, because that's how it always hit me too.
Yeah,
it's like, there's not much going on, but there's a lot going on. You know,
well, and that's the thing about it is, and it was allowed to, be the main part of it too. What we were all hearing, we all were saying to each other, let's just leave it the way it is, because it's already got us going.
Yeah,
you know, we don't want to get anything in the way. And a lot of recordings, sometimes they go too far. They have too much to clutter it up, and it gets in the way. And in fact, a lot of the times I find that since the voice is actually the most different thing on a lot of recordings, you know, compared to musical instruments and so forth. And what happens is they get so used to the voice and the lyrics and so forth that they spend a lot of time in doing the track and getting the track to be a big asset for the vocalist, but they don't realize that they've gotten so used to the vocalist that they hear it all the time, whether it's too low or not. And I found a lot of recordings at times where I had to bring the vocal out with equalization and so forth, because I couldn't even hear the lyrics anymore. And they didn't realize that was going on. And I said, hey, you know, I can't really follow all the lyrics. Let me try a test and try to bring that vocal a little more detailed, so that, because the main thing is with a recording is, if you have a vocalist, uh, you don't want to lose that vocalist. You don't want to have the track keep taking over,
Mhm.
and with some kind of accent or whatever. It may be in certain places, but you don't want to have it constantly distracting you from the main focal point of that tune, which is the vocalist.
So you fell right into my next subject, believe it or not, and that is the Carpenters.
Yeah, well,
And so, Karen's voice now with, 5.1 in isolation, I did a video on it actually with her, and the 5.1 of her voice only in Solitaire, the song Solitaire.
oh, sure.
And it's just chilling is the only word I can use. And as much as, Richard is a great arranger,
Yeah.
but sometimes it was like too much Richard, I felt like, and I didn't realize it until I heard the voice separated, and her voice, and you could hear her lips move. And you were there, obviously,
Well,
what I'm talking about.
yeah, she was she's a very special artist, or was. I mean,
Was, yeah.
and but yeah, there was something very natural and honest about it. She wasn't gimmicky, I never. She was very straightforward, but had the feeling and the way to express the lyrics and so forth. So it was always comfortable to listen to her.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
tragic
yeah.
loss.
Well, yeah. I
Gosh,
mean, yeah, I knew them for many years.
I'm sure.
I did all their albums.
I know.
Yeah, that was. They were
Yeah.
a fixture at A&M.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, this is, I know, downstream from what you do, and a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of A&M's records that were produced were made on translucent virgin vinyl. And the quality of the pressings were superb. One I brought for Bernie to sign, translucent vinyl. We know Police Synchronicity was one that has like a purple and a brown translucent, see-through. You could tell the purity, like the MoFis were back in the day. And so, all of that adds up to the quality thing, all the way down to bringing the record to you with the best vinyl you could have
Yeah,
as
well,
well.
this is a factor, the way the pressing comes out, because it's very hard to capture what's on the lacquer. That's the first thing that's made is a lacquer. It's a softer material, but you plate it and you make it into metal. The negative is a metal, and most processes are 3 steps. The negative, and then you have another. You can only plate the lacquer once, so you have this negative metal piece of metal to use beyond that. And that makes then another one, which is a positive. So you can go get the negative, and then you go to the positive. Then you can make more negatives, though, off of that positive. But that's the 3rd generation. So and we found over years of comparing and listening to what happens after it's gone from the actual lacquer to the metal, all the 3 different metal steps. That's what they call it, to a 3-step. And but they can make up to maybe 16 stampers from one master and one metal part that
Right.
makes all of this stampers. And so they can that's why they want to have quantity. But you do, and they've found out recently in the last number of years, maybe 4 or 5 years, they've been putting out on vinyl now 1-steps, where that negative that comes off of the first master, or off of the master, the negative is put in the press. It becomes a stamper, but it only lasts about 1,000 pressings, 1,200 pressings. So then I have to keep, or an engineer has to keep making masters. Some of these things that they're putting out for audiophiles and so forth, for who want the absolute best possible sound. Some of those things we'll have to do 7 sets of lacquers, because they're a famous artist, and and there's a lot of people now that are interested in that last little ounce of quality that's closest to the actual recording, and so they're getting it right off of the first negative of the lacquer. So that it's significant if you have a good playback system too. Remember, there's a lot of variation when it comes to playbacks. So like cartridges,
Yep.
that's why there's so many cartridges. It's like they all have they're mechanical,
Yeah.
and so they're all going to have a little bit of a different sound. So I mean, you get a lot of recommendations because the audiophiles or people that review these things are pretty good at really judging the ones that can track well and sound good or have a balanced sound. And what we find is that one of the hardest things to play back with a cartridge, which is everybody has to use a cartridge. There's two different types of cartridges, but the thing is, one of the hardest things for the cartridge or with the stylus that's in it and the whole suspension of it is that the things that are the hardest are high frequencies. So like the sibilant S's on vocalists, those are very hard to keep clean because there's a lot of energy there. It's short-lived, but it can splatter. And not on a cheap cartridge, it won't sound detailed and clear and like natural. So there's all of these kind of like, there are some limitations with vinyl, but if you don't exceed those limitations, they can be very, very good.
Yeah, and when you talked earlier about one steps and multiple lacquers, so you've got to run the tape.
Yeah, we have
each time.
Yeah, we have to
make a lacquer.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, that's wear and tear on the tapes as well.
Well, it is. Yeah, I mean, as long as I mean, some of these big famous recordings, they probably were cut from the master dozens of times, maybe. It is possible. Yeah, I mean, because I know there were some
high volume.
Yeah, there were a few things that I worked on too. Thriller was one of them.
Oh yes,
that one. I probably cut more masters on that than any album I ever cut. The Thriller, and it's the biggest selling album of all time. It was quite a long and drawn out. I had actually cut that at different. When I had my own studio after I left A&M, I kept cutting it at my new studio.
Oh, really?
Because they wanted me to stay with it, and keep cutting.
Consistency.
Yeah, the consistency.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting. It's the only, I think, product that I ever constantly was having somebody ordering more masters, and for this plant, that plant. And of course, in those days, vinyl was still one of the major things to buy.
Right.
So people were buying vinyl.
Sure.
Nowadays, a lot of stuff is streaming. It's all been all digitalized and it's been compressed and all kinds of things have happened. And the interesting thing is that CDs still sound really good if they're done properly.
Yep. It's all about the mastering.
Yeah. Well, it's because it hasn't gone through a lot of processes.
Right.
To save time and stuff. They want to save time. They think they're doing okay. But one thing about CDs is they're linear digital. And if it's done properly, even though it's a lower sampling rate, it can beat out a lot of stuff that's competing with it.
Something that's done really well.
Oh, no. Yeah.
It's not just the media.
No, it's not. Yeah.
You say Thriller, and I did a lot of research for that when I did the review, and I told you earlier, it's like the original is very danceable, very beat, very synchronized. And when the one step came out, it sounded great, but it was a little more analytical.
Yeah.
And it was great to sit and listen to hear, Bruce Swedien used, I think I read 192 tracks, because he recorded even like the door squeaks and the walks in stereo. So for each of those sounds, there was 2 tracks taken. And there's a lot of complexity when you break it down now with AI. You can break down these tracks, a lot of complexity. But man, your version just really has that raw energy and that beat to it that just, is unique. So yeah, I'm sure it was, that is one that I think, I don't know when your last time you've ever had to deal with it is, but they definitely sold 40 million, I think, of those or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's such a big seller. No matter what you do, I think it
is.
Yeah, everybody has to have one of those.
Yes. The other thing that I have a big interest in was the Steely Dan series because that
too.
you know that you know they're a favorite band of mine,
Yeah.
and when Chad announced that, it was right around the time I first visited him in 2022, and I was so glad to hear that you were going to be doing the mastering of those. And so, what was that like for you as an experience?
I know all of that, when you have that kind of quality anyway, that kind of caliber of performance and so forth, it's always a pleasure. Yeah. So, and those were done well.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, um, and I like to capture what they have. That's what my goal is.
right.
So, so yeah, that's always a pleasure to work on one that's going to reflect that interest in trying to capture everything that it has to offer.
The most, you know, I mean, all the Gaucho, Can't Buy a Thrill, Asia, you know, they really were just high caliber. The one that was the most interesting to me, and probably the most difficult for some people to get, I think, was Pretzel Logic.
Well, yeah.
And, you know, I think we kind of get stuck on a norm of expecting something to sound a certain way because that's the way we've heard it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that one, I've grown to where that's an album that I really didn't play a lot because, I don't know, there was something about the sound that never really was totally as pleasing as some of the others. And when I first heard Acoustic Sounds version of it, the Analog Productions, I thought, okay, there's something different here, and talked to Chad about it. And, you know, we're talking about the top end was a little bit, I say rolled off or whatever term you want to use. But boy, I heard a lot of other things now that I was totally missing before. And so it was almost like it was a new album to me. The sound of that album was totally new. And it was the most interesting experience I've ever had. But yet, it's kind of like I had to be open to it, I think.
Well,
in
that's true too.
Yeah.
You don't expect it necessarily to be what you're used to. You're open to just objectively have a new experience.
Yes.
And see how that penetrates your
Right.
emotions.
Yeah.
Because it's like I've said before, it's an emotional experience, music, and you can take maybe more than even one journey on one album. That even there's a difference there, but
Sure.
you're taking a modified emotional journey. But the main thing is that it's communicating that way in a good way, easy for you to access.
Yeah. I think you kind of got to get past that expectations stage.
Well, yeah, to make it like something else. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
true.
we know the way Chad does what he does, and you know you had to cut any number of recuts before he takes a side and says, okay, that's good for that one.
Oh, yeah, that happens.
You know, we
too.
see it, a lot. I mean, I'm looking in the dead wax at how many, what the thing is saying. Is it a 3? Is it a 4? Is it a 1?
Oh, the dash.
Yeah.
The dash.
Yeah, that's the first thing I looked for.
Yeah.
How many times did Chad beat up Bernie on this one or need it redone? But was there anything special about that album that you communicated to you?
Quite remember.
Okay.
But I usually just look at them as separate entities in a certain way, and I'm not really, I'm not as maybe used to listening to it the way it originally came out.
Okay.
And so when I listen to it, it's almost like a new experience for me a lot of times, even though I've heard it somewhere, but maybe not under good conditions. And so I really listened to it as if it was a new product
Okay.
for me. And
That's fair.
I try to feel what's important. Hopefully I zero in on the stuff that's most important to get the best experience of the music. But and that's part of the challenge, trying to make the thing communicate in its complete way to the listener, and make it easy for the listener also to access all of the ins and outs of that recording that make it feel the best.
Yeah, and be fresh, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it.
Happen between two the same album, things will be coming out in one that you didn't notice before, or the other one is, and it main object, I guess, would be to get all of that stuff to be at top form.
That's
so
the
that
key.
it's all contributing to the experience of the music. But that sometimes it's hard in mastering because we can manipulate the sound, but some things, the way they're mixed, you can't really fix.
Done deal.
We don't have the control that a mixer has.
Yeah.
So there are things there. You can only get so much a lot of times. Now, our console, we build our own consoles here, and they're all discrete components and so forth. We want to have the best quality because that will project the best out of the final product. But and we have maybe a choice of about 30 different frequencies to manipulate, to try to bring out voices or bring out this area or that area or make this area smaller or bigger. And we have all of these choices, but we have to also be careful about what you hurt because we're doing this to the whole recording. So we have to be careful that we're not favoring one thing over too much over other things. You can maybe help it enough to where now it's becoming at least something you noticed there, but doesn't have to take over.
Right.
So it still is a joint effort with all of the different tracks that are on there. They all have to work together.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's good I tell a lot of people that are thinking about mastering or whatever, that what they really need to do is to really listen to a lot of music, all different types of music and all. So you need to kind of get an idea of, and what happens is when you start listening to, say you're just listening to some sort of type of music, and the main thing is after you've been doing it a while and you've been mastering them and listening to masters coming in that are similar types of music and so forth, the really great ones start to stand out, and now that's your benchmark. Yeah. It's now you've got an example of how good it can be, this kind of music or this type of music, because they fall into categories, and so when you get a new product in that's similar, you refer to that one. You just have that in your mind, and you could even be finding one that's better. I mean, you might have to update your idea of how good it can be, this kind of music, when it's recorded and mixed and so on. So you have a goal of just trying to optimize whatever comes in, and so that every element and thing that's in that mix is going to contribute to the best experience you can have of that music.
We were with Kevin Gray yesterday. Does a situation ever come up where a label maybe does send you a copy or a version of it to compare to up front, or does that pretty much never happen?
Oh, no. Well, it's usually on reissues.
Right, of course.
They'll send something that's been out there or that was successful or whatever. And a lot of them they're good. And some things I don't change. That's another thing you need to know. Should I change this and then you might even manipulate it a little bit, but you realize that what they got on that master was fine.
And a lot of those tapes have notes.
I can't make it better.
Yeah, some have notes. The old ones have notes in them sometimes.
Well, we used to do it pretty primitive. We write it on the box sometimes. But I had little sheets of just note paper and stuff. I'd paste it inside the box. But as I have a more manipulation ability now with different ranges of the spectrum. We have little guidance sheets of what to do if you're going to have to recut this or redo it. We try to be more thorough because now we have more flexibility, or we have more possibilities. We might not use any more different frequencies and things, but they might be not the same frequency. But there might not be just a few places you're manipulating it, but this tune needs it over here, or this one needs it over there. That's why we have a lot of different choices on our console when we're setting these things up. We can move around the areas that we're manipulating. So, but it all has to go together in the end. So that's it's a challenge. But after a lot of experience, though, it helps because you kind of heard what it can be.
So that's part one of my interview with Bernie. A wide-ranging group of topics and some insights into his experiences. I found it very interesting. And for me, a reflection of someone who's had time to work in the industry, work across a lot of different genres, and in fact become a fixture in the industry. More importantly than that even is the fact that he is leaving that legacy and building on it with other mastering engineers in his company, so that Bernie Grundman Mastering will continue, both in the US and Hollywood, and with the digital side and multi-channel side he has in Tokyo as well. So it's really great to see that his philosophy and his training and his mentoring will be expressed in the future generations. So as always, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so by clicking on the bell, and a thumbs up or like is appreciated, as are your comments. Now members, you also will be getting a few extra snippets of video with Bernie that I'll be providing for members only. So if you're not a member, think about joining. It's only $5 a month. So as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time. Take care, everybody.